Hey guys, welcome to Comfy Cozy Up. So today we're talking about April. April was a good reading month. I read a lot of heavy books. It wasn't a plan. Absolutely wasn't a plan, but it happened. So I also read 3 books from the library. So I am still on this library kick, and I end up also purchasing books, 2 books that I read already for this month. So let's get into it. We're gonna start with The Wedding People. And this book was a popular book that I had on hold for a long time. And it ended up being a book that I felt was like that contemporary story that you want to read, but it does have a heavy topic. So this is a story about a woman who is she's around 40. Life didn't pan out the way she expected. She was in a marriage that ended in infidelity on the part of the husband, and she just, every time she thinks about her life, she wants to just end it. So she made this decision that she was going to end it, but she was going to do it at this resort place that host a lot of weddings. And it just so happened on that day she was there was a wedding that was scheduled to happen. She now met the bride, who she is like, her wanting to end it all made her bold, where she just would speak what's on her mind. And she did tell the bride, and the bride's like, not on my wedding, and it turned out for them like a weird bonding situation with them, where they're communicating and they're being truthful with themselves but not with anybody else, kind of deal, in the beginning. And you see how they both needed each other for different reasons, and it ended in a very much you knew that this character was not going to unalive this. They were so self-aware of themselves. They did the therapy and all that, and you just knew they were going to work it out. But the way it ended, I thought, was a sweet ending to a story that could have been very negative, and that's the best way to put it. It is a contemporary, so the writer is not going to be as this off the wall kind of story. But at the same time, I think I just liked how it was presented, and I needed a little feel-good moment at the end, and this gave me that. The next book is also a book that I absolutely did not plan to read. It is on the Women's Prize on the short list. Now, I've read 1 book off the short list last year because it was on the Booker, and that is Safe Keep. Absolutely love that book. And then I was like, I wanted to read Good Girl, so I went to the library, put it on hold, and while I was leaving, I saw All Force, and this is, I believe, Miranda July, yes, author. So I decided, let's just read it, and it turned into that is, like, I would say, an interesting story that dealt with grief, that dealt with loss, in a sense of losing someone, but also losing yourself, seeking something but then using method that can be destructive to get it. And the way it's told, it just felt like a woman going through a midlife crisis. She was supposed to go on a trip to from across the country, and never made it. Was around maybe 30 minutes from her home, and she's in this motel, and she is doing everything and being someone else, or there's that moment where you think of when things are going through your head and you act out on it, and that's how she was portraying herself in the story, to the point where I was like, where is this story going? But then there's that moment in the story where you get to understand what's really happening with the character, that you're like, oh, I've never really known an author to do this kind of storyline, present this kind of story this way. Now, is it unique in terms of the topic? No, but how it is unfold and done, I've never read anything like this. I thought this was very much a unique, creative writing story. It is heavy. It is sometimes a bit destructive, weird, and gross. But at the same time, it's still woman-centered, what some women deal with and what some women chooses to do to cope kind of deal. Absolutely love the ending of this as well. This ending was just like, it's that aha moment, but there's that moment in it where it connects everything that's happening. The title is so fitting. All fours, when you think of it, you think of being down, be thinking of sometimes help. Not necessarily somebody can heal you or fix you, but you having to find out in yourself, how can you get past this moment in your life and what is really happening to you. I thought this was really good. This was good, but I feel like this is not everybody kind of cup of tea. I think this is a book that is you need to read with someone. I really wish I knew someone who read it that I could really talk about it with. I did talk briefly with the librarian because she did say it was an interesting book. That's what she was telling me when I was checking it out. And, you know, little things we were able to talk about. But I think this is one of those stories that is beneficial with a group, like literally buddy reading with somebody, because it's that kind of heavy take. So that's off the list. That's number 2. All right. Then the subscriber pick, which is Thomas Hardy, Far From the Madding Crowd. This was fun. This was fun. This was a different kind of story for me, because when I think of classics and you think of women's role, in this, it could easily went another way, because you think of a woman and there's 3 suitors. 3. Yeah. So it follows, you know, Bathsheba. Every time I think about her name, Lord. And she's that woman that at a young age she wanted the wedding but not the marriage kind of deal. And there's 3 different suitors. There's a farmer turned shepherd who is, you know, the first that wanted her, and it didn't happen. Then you have another like business guy who, you know, has wealth, and he's aggressive in how he's approaching her, and she's not knowing how to tell this man no. But you see how dangerous it could be for her. And then you have a soldier who just came in through and, you know, did everything, and, you know, and took what he wanted in terms of, he's like, I'm going to get you, and that kind of deal. And she was easily wooed by him. But at the end of the day, who was her true love? Who was the one that really, and there's that point in the book where she kind of pissed me off, but in a way like, girl, stop it. And she said, well, you didn't ask me. Yeah. There's a lot of twist and turn. There's some action packed, because when you got cocky men fighting over a woman, things are going to happen. There's that moment where you think of her in this story because of the timeline. How could she really have that much say in certain things? But in this book, Thomas Hardy did that. I'm loving Thomas Hardy stories, because he always give characters that you're going to have a soft spot for. And in this, I had a really soft spot for the farmer. I just thought he was, you know, like a sweet man in this. You know, he had his moments, but for the most part, I really think he was a likable character. I want to like Bathsheba, but there's something sometimes in the story where I'm just wondering, like, girl, stop it. You know, stop it. But this was a good classic. I really enjoyed this. So then I had an arc. The Net Gala was supposed to read it before it came out. Didn't get to it. It did come out early this month, early in April. But after I read it, I needed to own it, and that is Happy Land by Darlene Perkins-valdez. Now, this is a story that I knew I wanted to own. Now, I've read Take My Hand before this, which is her first book, and I realized after and getting to this that she is an author that likes to write historical fiction that is influenced, inspired by true story. She's going to give you something that is going to make you want to read beyond the pages, and this is what Happy Land did for me. And Happy Land really talk about the heritage land that are, when you think of the many of, you know, marginalized people who are losing their property through loopholes of people realizing how valuable it is. So Happy Land is basically a land acquired by black people, a group of black people during, well, after the Civil War, and how they acquired the land, how they purchased the land, and they owned it, and they decided to build like a kingdom. So there's that whole idea of, we're going to incorporate some of our, what we think or what we believe are African roots is based on maybe someone many years ago has told them. So these are former slaves, so they do not know, you know, their past and that kind of deal. But they were able to serve themselves, like have their own business, create their own crop system, and find ways to be in a community where they can depend on themselves and strive. And we all know what happened when, you know, in the South, we know how easily that can be destroyed. And you get that in story, but this is a different take of how they were able to do it. And so in the story, you are following the great-great-grandmother, and then you following the great-great-granddaughter in the present, and how she is now, her grandmother wanted her to come, and the grandmother is dying. So she doesn't know why the grandmother, but the grandmother is telling her the story that she never knew, because her mother never told her the story of her ancestors and did not want to share that kind of story, partly because the land becomes something that they wanted to escape from the younger generation. So you're discovering a lot of things. You're discovering her great-great-grandmother's storyline, and you know, her loves, children, her struggle, the issues that happened when women were not considered powerful, but then there's that one that is, and respected, and can be able to make decisions. I loved the journey this book put me on. I also loved learning about the heritage land and how these laws that are just recently being incorporated to protect people from losing their property that they've owned, you know, 150 years, that's been in a generation, and all these investors who are like predators and trying to rid people from their land. You know, you get that kind of background in this. So I think this is one of those historical fiction that I really love, and I'm really enjoying the journey I am going on, reading about a lot of these different cases that are true, and some of the laws that are recently put on the books to protect some who still have the land. All right, so yeah, this was really good. All right, so then I did get a library, another one of the short list of the Women's Prize. Now, I wanted to read this. This was like the first book on the list, and I really want to read this. Yeah, I thought good girl, and when I read inside, I was like, ooh, yeah, this self-destruction. Don't know why I'm picking up books like this, but this is where I'm at. I did buy the book after, because at the time when I bought it, I didn't realize the book was going to come in. It came in from a library, so I still pick it up because I'm always going to support the library. Well, let's talk about a 19-year-old. A 19-year-old of Afghan heritage. And of course, we're talking about an era where you might be discriminated based on where you're from, where your family's from. So you lie. You tell people you're Greek. You tell people maybe sometimes, it depends on the situation, you're a different last name. You disguise everything about you, and then you're in self-destruction mode because you're using drugs and you are doing everything that is against what your father says, or your parents, or your family, what a good girl shouldn't be doing. Out late, hanging out in certain areas and doing all of that. And while you are doing all of this, you are telling the stories of what you know, of your family, of the things that you've heard. You also grieving. Your mother passed, and your father is not himself in terms of, he's just a shell of a man. And in this story, there's a moment, I wrote it down in my notebook. I did not, there's a quote that the father said that I absolutely love. Oh, it's okay, I found it. That was like I should have put a sticky in this. All right, when he said, you cannot forget where you come from. It's not a death sentence. I thought that was the perfect way to sum up this storyline in terms of a daughter who is struggling with her identity. I think it's not so much struggling with the identity, but it's seeing what happens to people who are very proud of where they come from, and you know, or there's the assumptions that's happening of where if you are disclosing that you are Muslim, disclosing that you are from that Afghanistan, and what the scrutiny and the things that she experienced living in a Western world. And I love that the father made that comment to her. And you know, even though there's a comment after, why are you always so dramatic? And he said, it's not dramatic. I just want you to remember. And I was like, absolutely right. I think I can't relate to some of that because I am Jamaican and we are very proud people, and we have no issue letting the world know we're Jamaican. I've never known a Jamaican that would never disclose that they're Jamaican. So I can't relate to that kind of struggle of coming from a country that automatically, if you are in a certain region, a certain circle, comes with scrutiny, or being in a religion that is also comes with a certain scrutiny. So I think this is a story that is deep in terms of the author's ability to write this and to share this take. And sometimes when you think of people who are substance abusers, it's, you know, it's way more than just being on drugs. You know, oftentimes it's numbing something or escaping something, and eventually when they sober up, they have to find a way to cope, and then they end up reliving and redoing the things that they think is helping. And in this case, I love the fact that even with her struggles, she decided home was still possible in a way that is you know, some don't. And I think I saw a quote on I think on social media where this woman was having a meltdown on the street, and she looked over and there was a guy who, you know, we knew was a substance abuser just on the street. And the comment was made in there where someone said, they were staring at the guy, and the guy said, I used to be like you. And I was like, yeah. I really enjoy this book in a different way. This is not a happy book. It is heavy, but I do think it's a thought-provoking book. I do understand why it made the short list. Now, is it going to be winning? I'm not sure, because I feel the same way too about All Fours and Safe Keep. I think I don't know when they're going to announce anything, but I am drawn to read, I think it's Fundamentally. I think I'm drawn to read that book as well. But I find that the theme are very similar with them. There's a lot of grief and a lot of self awareness and self struggles with life kind of deal in these books that I've read so far on the list. And we'll see. But this was interesting. It was interesting, very interesting. So yeah, so there we go. This is all of the books, all 5 that I have read. I am still enjoying using the library and testing it out, and I do have 2 books I think that I might get next week that I want to read. I'm going to try and sprinkle some happy stuff, some romance in this, because I'm reading a lot of heavy books. All right, guys. So thanks for watching, and let me know if you read any of these books, if you want to read any of these books, and I will, see you in the next one. All right, guys. Have a good day. Bye.